Hi, this is Chanda from Chanda-Louise Consulting. So this is part 2 of our case study video. Let's get right into it. I'll share my screen. Okay. All right, guys. So just to give you an overview of what I'm intending to do or what my hopes are, I'm going to be reviewing real-life companies, some companies that I've worked with and some that I haven't. I'll be focusing on their operations and making recommendations from a project management standpoint on how they can improve their operations. So that's the goal of these case studies. So the first thing that I'm going to do, I like G Drive, Google Docs, all that good stuff. So I typically save most of my documents here. I can easily access it anywhere I am. This is not an ad, but you know. Okay. All right. So I have a folder that I created. I called it Business Case. What I'm going to do is just create a quick Google Doc. And what I try to do, or what I do when I meet a client, is I get their profile, right? So I want to understand what they do, how long they've been in business, how many employees they have, and then also like what do they specialize in specifically. So I've gone through this process already, but I'll just walk you through. So the company that we're focusing on is Advantage Tax Services. I know in part 1, I initially said Tax Advantage. I got it reversed. Alrighty, so let's add some bullets and get into this. So what we're going to do is just indicate their profile. So Advantage Tax Services, they've been established for about 22 years, right? They have 1 to 2 employees, 2 to 4 contractors. So they hire 2 to 4 contractors. Their revenue is anywhere between $380,000 to $500,000 a year, which is pretty awesome. Okay, what do they specialize in? So I categorize their specialty into 2 segments or categories. Now, before I go into specialization, actually, they are a service-based company. That specializes in taxes and business structure. So this is what I'm calling this other category, business structure. Okay, awesome. So here we are. Now, to get a little bit more detailed, in terms of taxes, they provide services to 2 different types of clients. So they provide services directly to the consumer. So let's say I want to get my income taxes done. I want to get them prepared. I would head over to them and say, hey guys, I want to get my income taxes done for 2020. Here's all the documentation you need. Let me sign what I need to. A tax specialist or a preparer would review my documentation, make sure everything is there that needs to be provided, and then they would actually prepare the taxes. So personal income tax preparation, right? Look at that spelling. Okay. And then the second aspect of taxes would be business or corporate taxes, right? Business/corporate taxes. Now, with business/corporate taxes, I can actually break that down or get more detail with that. So with that, they also offer, so the annual taxes, right? Annual income tax, preparation of that. And then also sales tax, right? Which is quarterly, I believe. And then bookkeeping. So bookkeeping for this company, and I'm assuming most accounting companies that prepare taxes for businesses and corporations, they need the bookkeeping to be done. Once the bookkeeping is done, that leads to generating the profit and loss statements, right? The profit and loss statements are then fed into the income taxes, the income tax that's filed by the business or corporation. Okay, so that's cool. Alrighty, so that's one specialization. I think I've got all my marks, yep. The second that they also offer or specialize in is business structure. So this is more so if I am a new business and I need to establish myself. So you need to establish yourself as like a legal entity, not like as a legal entity. So that could be an LLC, sole proprietorship, corporation, or S Corp. Whoops. There we go. So they would help you as a business set up that business entity in one of these 4 segments. Okay. Another process or procedure or service offering, excuse me, that they offer is payroll. That's right. Payroll. And then finally licensing. So like vendor licensing. I'm giving it like a broad scope name. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is, let's say, for instance, you're a bar or a restaurant, and then you want to get a liquor license. So they would help you prepare or set up, help you prepare and complete the documentation for that process. Or a food vendor, so food license, right, etc. Okay, so this looks pretty solid. So here's a profile, and pretty much I get the information that I need through an interview or intake process, so to speak, right? So depending on the company, I ask specific types of questions to get me to the point where I can understand what they look like high level and start to break that down. So experience gives you, I think, that lens to understand what questions to ask. Okay. So this is the profile at the top, and then this is what they specialize in. So taxes and as a business structure. So we'll highlight that. We'll highlight this. Okay. So once I've started to understand what their service offerings are, I then take a deeper dive into each service offering to start to understand what the process is, right? Okay, so in this respect, looking at personal income tax preparation, I understand for this component, I think this process is not too difficult. It's pretty simple. You have walk-ins, meaning the type of clients, or referrals. And then you also have pre-existing customers, right? I think that's a double E or not, right? Okay, so what I would look at this process as being, as I understood it, is you'd have a walk-in or someone that's already established. They come in, they give you their documentation. The tax preparer reviews the documentation to ensure that everything is on par. Once they've prepared the taxes, they would call the customer back in to review it. If all goes well, then we submit, and once it's submitted, the customer will then pay you. Right? So they'll either pay you now or say, hey, you can take a bit of it from my refund. So that's essentially the process holistically for both the walk-ins and the referrals, the walk-ins and pre-existing clients. The main difference might be that pre-existing clients, rather than coming in, might just send an email with their W-2s and all the other applicable documentations that are needed. So I think this process overall is pretty well streamlined. I think opportunities would most likely be maybe in just keeping everything, might be in how you organize the data, right? And then doing a bit of analysis on how the walk-ins heard about you or referrals heard about you, and then are you getting a lot of pre-existing clients or past clients coming back? That's okay. So this process is simple enough. Where I think there's opportunity, to be honest, is with the business corporate tax. I feel like there's so many, or there are at least 3 different avenues where we can streamline processes here. And I think what I'll do is take a look at one of them and show you how I would analyze it. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at bookkeeping. Bookkeeping, because although it seems relatively simple, and frankly, I think it's not too bad. It's really important, right? In order to complete the business corporate tax, you need to have the bookkeeping done. Alrighty, so let's just highlight that. Okay, so with bookkeeping, the owner has, let's get rid of this. Okay. So with bookkeeping, the owner has two different things happening. So they have their employees that complete the bookkeeping, and then they also have contractors. Okay. So with the employees, they're paid per hour, while the contractors are paid at flat rate. Now, what I did is I shadowed the bookkeepers to see what that process looked like. And I noticed after a while that bookkeeping could be very tedious. My goodness. It can be extremely tedious depending on the client that you have and how many transactions they're completing per month, right? So it means to me, one thing I noticed is that if I were an employee, I would need to find an efficient way, right, to enter the transactions where it wouldn't be taking up so much of my time. I noticed that doing the bookkeeping, specifically the data entry concept or purpose of it, was very tedious and time consuming. And just to kind of take a little bit of a step back. So with bookkeeping, the process high level would be you get a statement, right? So from January to December, you take the transactions within that statement and you're basically classifying them, right? So they're expenses, and then also income that's coming in as well. So then you're classifying what type of expenses are coming in and what type of income is coming in. Now, before you can classify, you have to get that data into, let's say, for instance, QuickBooks, right? And what many of the bookkeepers were doing were manually entering that in, so typing in each transaction. An alternate process was to get the client's password and then have access to their bank account. So then depending on the bank account, some bank accounts were set up where it could send an automatic feed to QuickBooks and automatically update that information. So that would make it one step easier, but the employee would still have to go into the data once it's been dumped in and do a validation to make sure it was transferred accurately. Once you make sure you do your quality check or assessment, you now have to classify the types of transactions that you have. Okay, this is expense, this is this type of expense, we're eating with customer or client, etc. Right? Okay. So to me, where I thought there was an opportunity was just this point right here. I thought it actually would make sense if we moved the bookkeeping responsibility away from the employees and kept it solely with the contractors. I say this because the contractors are paid a flat rate. So no matter the size, whether it's a small company or a large company, it's one flat rate, which means you're controlling the cost that you're paying for the bookkeeping to be done. So now that you've moved that responsibility away from the employees, I then think it makes sense to have the employees start to groom them for an administrative / managerial role. So meaning have them now oversee the contractors, right? So then have them start to manage which contractor has which client, etc. I think this way it actually starts to remove some of the lower level responsibility from the owner in terms of managing both the employees and contractors, right? And it also creates a level of accountability with the employee and gives them some vested interest, right? A path towards growth. So I think that's a great opportunity there to have the employees positioned where they're starting to be groomed for promotion and have them manage all the contractors. Now, with them managing the contractors, I think their role could be defined in a few ways, or in one particular way. There are a few, but I'll give one example. So what they can do is they can manage and allocate which contractors receive which clients, right? What they can do also is set up a general email or inbox. I noticed that the owner would receive all the statements and inquiries and correspondence directly from the clients, from their in their personal email. I think by setting up a generalized inbox specifically to collect those type of documentation, or portal, whichever works, would make more sense, a centralized location. And then have it be the employee's responsibility to review that portal or that inbox once a week. So let's say, for instance, every Tuesday, this employee goes in and looks at all the clients and collects all the documents and sorts them out into a particular folder or file, which is also accessible to the contractors. Once the documents have been completed, right? So all the documents needed are there and they're provided. One could have the contractors go directly into those folders and now start to complete the bookkeeping. So what that now starts to allow the employee to do is to track how long it's taking a contractor to complete the bookkeeping for each client once all the information has been provided. So you can start to now create KPIs to measure that, right? Another great thing I thought which would be a good opportunity is once that whole, the bookkeeping process is complete, so you have the contractor, they've done the bookkeeping, they now go back and maybe they send an email or they do a closeout of the folder in the portal, which sends a notification to that employee to know that, hey, this is done. At that point, that can trigger your billing. So your billing can now be triggered to say, hey, this task was completed. This is now good to charge the client, right? So I think those are great opportunities to maximize on profit. So those are my thoughts. Also, I think actually when I was looking at this too, I thought that the employee could now start to take on more of an auditing type of role, a quality control. So you have the contractors that are doing they're completing the bookkeeping. While they're completing the bookkeeping, once it's done, then that employee, their responsibility is to overview, do like a quality check, right? So complete a quality check on each of the clients to make sure like, hey, does this make sense? And it doesn't have to be something super extensive, but it could just be high level. Does this make sense? Does this reconcile? Yes, no, okay, good. And then they give a final sign off that this is done. Here's our P&L. We're good to go. You can start to prepare the taxes. That's my thought. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any questions, suggestions, or even any companies that you would like me to assess. All right, take it easy. Bye.